TV, Rell TV. This ain't the Shade Room or TMZ. Cause on Rell TV, ain't tryna get canceled like R. Kelly. Cause it's Rell TV.
It's your boy Rell back for another episode of Rell TV. So for this episode here, we're going to talk about black sitcoms that are adult based. So we're not talking about the shit with kids in it. We're not talking about the Family Matters or the Fresh Prince. We're going to talk about just adult based black sitcoms. We're going into my top 5. So before we get into it, make sure you subscribe and like below. And then we're going to get into number 5 here. One of my favorite shows. I mean, all these are my favorites. We'll talk about the Wayans Brothers. So the Wayans Brothers, my top 5. Classic show. I mean, it's about two brothers, Sean and Marlon, and they had their pops, John Witherspoon, RP to legend. And I mean, the show was hilarious. There was, I mean, if you know about the Wayans Brothers, their comedy is kind of out there a little bit, and they were able to push a lot of buttons. They were saying a lot of shit. They were doing whatever they want, and that's why I love their show, because they just didn't care. Like, just the way that they were acting, and obviously the chemistry that they had as brothers was great. And I always just loved that show because it felt like that they were just doing whatever they wanted, but it also felt like it was a show, but it wasn't a show. It felt like that's how they were. That's how they talked to each other. Those were the jokes that they were making. So I always fuck with the Wayans Brothers. One of my favorite episodes is the one with In Vogue, where Marlon was taking the pictures with In Vogue, and then he would like wind up kissing her or whatever, and then they sent it to like the Inquirer, which is like the fake TMZ or whatever, and then he had to like apologize and all that. That's one of my that's probably my favorite top 3 favorite Wayans Brothers. But I also think we talked about this in the last episode. As well, so make sure you subscribe and check out the last episode with my dad. We talked about like how the Wayans Brothers changed in the beginning and in the later seasons, and mostly because they changed characters. So outside of Pops and then Sean and Marlon, they changed like Lou, who was they started out with Lou as the security guard. If you don't remember, they had the restaurant, Pops had the restaurant, and then Sean and Marlon ran the newsstand or whatever, and then they had Lou. And then they had they had like Monique. She worked at like the little card shop and all that shit. And then the second part, they brought in D as a security guard. And then they had TC and they had Dupree, which is that combo was a lot funnier than the first combo. Like the episodes, I think got a lot better than that second one. And the stories too as well. Like Marlon wanted to be an actor and all that. Then he did like the episode where he like took drugs and shit. Like I think it got a lot better in that later season. And also they just became better actors. I mean, most of these sitcoms are comedians turn into actors. So usually they get better as it goes on because they're just becoming better actors. So I'm going with Wayans Brothers, number 5. I'm going to give it 7.9 out of 10. Next, number 4, I'm going with the Parkers. I mean, I always fuck with the Parkers. Parkers is a spinoff of Moesha. It was the mom and the daughter. Monique was the mom. And it was a great show because, they both went to college. They went to community college together. And, the mom was in love with Professor Ogilvy and all that shit. And I mean, they did bring some characters over from Moesha. I mean, Andell, R.I.P. They brought Andell over from Moesha. And I mean, Parker's was hilarious. And I always love Freestyle Unity. Like, people don't give Freestyle Unity credit for their greatness. Like, they should have went platinum. Freestyle Unity was their bid was crazy. Like, they had the singing, they had the rapping. Freestyle Unity was very underrated. I'm going with the Parkers. I'm going with number 4 Parkers, and I'm gonna give them a solid 8.1 out of 10. So for number 3, I'm gonna go with the Jamie Foxx Show. Jamie Foxx Show, absolute classic. It was about Jamie Foxx. He actually played Jamie King. He was from Texas. He moved to LA. He was trying to be like a singer and all that. And then he lived with his aunt and uncle at the King's Tower, which was a hotel in LA. And he was trying to get his music career up. He was with Jodeci for a little bit. Like, he went on tour, and then he was wilding or whatever. They had to kick him off. Yeah, I mean, he was doing this. He was doing this thing, and then he wanted to be in Jingle 2000, which I think is when the show really got funny. Once it got to the Jingle 2000 phase, which was like the later part of the seasons, I think that it really got funny. Like the battle that he had with his coworker, the female coworker at Jingles 3000, was absolutely that was one of the funniest episodes, possibly the funniest episode of Jamie Foxx.
Plain white rice, plain white rice. See how it boils, see how it boils.
30 minutes and it will be done. Yes.
Oh, we're watching Sanford and Son. Plain white rice, plain white rice.
That was one of the funniest episodes of Jamie Foxx ever. I mean, I love the fact that he wind up getting fancy at the end. They do the whole thing. He's chasing her. I like that. They allowed him to finally, get that going. So I'm gonna go with Jamie Foxx number 3, and I'm gonna give it a solid 8.3 out of 10. Number 2, I'm gonna go with Living Single. Living Single is one of the greatest shows of the 90s, all genres. It was Khadijah. Khadijah was pretty much played by Queen Latifah. She pretty much was the leader of it all, because she brought everyone together. She had a cousin who was Sinclair. Max, she went to college with Max. And then Regine was her friend from when she was younger. So Khadijah brought everyone together. Then they had Overton, and then they had Kyle living upstairs. And then Overton wound up, everybody started infiltrating. It was it was a greater version of Friends. I definitely think it was a better version of Friends. One of the greatest shows of the 90s. It gave you a little bit of everything. She was a businesswoman. She was an entrepreneur. She had flavor. You know what I'm saying? She was dealing with athletes. You know what I'm saying? Actors, actresses. They dealt with a lot of real life shit that was going on that you can still relate to. You can still watch it now and still relate to it. And that's why I'm going with Living Single number 2. I'm gonna give it a solid 8.9 out of 10. And for my number 1 favorite black sitcom, adult based, I'm going with Martin. I mean, absolute classic. I think everybody knew this already. Martin, number 1. I mean, hands down, one of the funniest shows to ever come on TV. It dealt with relationships. It dealt with friendships. A lot of ships. It was hilarious. The scenarios, the different situations that they put themselves in. Like Pam and Martin cracking on each other. The different shows within the show. I feel like with Martin, it's like Martin was playing a bunch of different other characters, so he was allowed to be in scenes where the Martin character wasn't in there. So, Shanae had her episode, Roscoe had his episode, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, the show was great because Martin was able to be in the show without being in the show, technically, because he played so many characters, and I just thought that the show was hilarious. My only criticism about Martin of why I had to drop the score a little bit is because when Martin and Gina was beefing in real life, it kind of took away from the show. Like, the show wasn't as funny when they weren't together, because the chemistry of Martin and Gina was the show. That's Martin, that's the show. So it's like, when they weren't together, it kind of took away from it. There still was funny episodes, but it felt like it was a reach. Like, you remember like the episode where Pam, they found out that Pam signed the wedding certificate or whatever, so they had to go back and change it. I mean, they had funny episodes, but it just wasn't the same. And that's why I had to give it a little bit, because you could tell that the chemistry wasn't there, and it just wasn't. You could feel the love in the first few seasons between Martin and Gina and the whole cast. Like, everyone was just gelling, and you could tell that they weren't doing the same. So that's why I had to lower the score a little bit, but it's still my number 1, Martin, 9.1 out of 10. And that's just my top five. I mean, I could do fucking a top 10. I mean, there's you talk about shows like Malcolm and Eddie, which was a classic. A lot of people forget about Malcolm and Eddie, but Malcolm and Eddie was a classic. Eddie Griffin, Malcolm Jamal Warner, which is a combo that you really didn't expect. I mean, especially since, you know, Malcolm was played by, I mean, he was Theo, you know, we just knew him as Theo. And then Eddie Griffin was a comedian, he was raunchy and shit. So it was like, it was a great combination. They like were roommates, whatever. They owned like a bar. And I think Eddie was like a mechanic or some shit. So like, it was a great show. Malcolm and Eddie, I would have that as an honorable mention. You could also throw in shows like Girlfriends. Rock was lit. I used to rock a little bit back in my day. But Rock was fire. Girlfriends was definitely fire too as well. I mean, there's a tons of other sitcoms, and we will definitely get into those in future episodes. So make sure you subscribe and like. Thank you for watching another episode of Rell TV. It's your boy Rell. Check me out next time, and we out of here.